this break.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's wonderful to share a screen with you this afternoon. While I'm chatting a little bit, see if you can work on your microphone. It's a little, mute your mic right now, and then we'll come back to you in a few minutes.
Okay.
Delighted to hear your story again, and you and I met several years ago in a local school district, our Central Valley school district. And I'm excited that you're interested in doing this book study. We're finding ways now to still connect, even though we need to keep our physical distance from each other. We still need to be socially connected. And so having time to, even in our work day, to stay connected around our professional literature. I applaud you for this idea that you have. The book that you've chosen to share with folks and study is Cultural Proficiency, a Manual for School Leaders, 4th edition. Corwin has said, our publisher has said it's unusual to have 4th editions of books. And you cannot do a 2nd or 3rd or 4th edition without the 1st edition being a bestseller, tops on their list. Then 2nd edition was the same, and 3rd edition. And what that means is that folks really enjoy the book, and to publish another edition, you have to add new materials each time you have a new addition to a book. In choosing your theme today, talking about culture, culture of an organization has been defined in the literature as the way we do business around here. And so newcomers, when new people are hired into an organization, they are really the ones that can tell you what the culture of that organization is. After they've been in an organization for 3 or 4 months, they can tell you who the heroes are. They can tell you what the symbols are of the organization. They can tell you who can be trusted in the organization. And those are the things that represent the culture of the organization. So those of us that have been in the organizations for a long period of time, we don't even think about the culture because we've been in it for so long. So when the book was first written, Cultural Proficiency, a Manual for School Leaders, the co-authors, Randy Lindsey, Kikanza Nuri Robbins, and Ray Terrell, were the co-authors of the first edition, and I joined them. They finally let me in to join them on the 4th edition because I'd been editing with them along the way. Their first edition, before they met Corwin Press, was rejected by numerous publishing companies because of one particular chapter in the book. And that chapter was on privilege and entitlement. And publishing companies wouldn't touch it. Corwin stepped up and said, yes, this is what the work is about. And because of one particular editor on the staff, they took it on. And the book, as I said, now has the 4th edition. The co-authors of that first edition had found the work of Terry Cross. And Terry Cross is a social worker in Oregon, Portland, Oregon area. He's a member of the Seneca Nation and had moved from New York to Oregon. And in his social work, he had found and done some studies around why it was that some counselors could work cross-culturally and others could not work effectively cross-culturally and cross-cultural communication. And it really didn't matter about the culture of the person being counseled or the counselor. So they launched a study and they came up with what they call cultural competence and culturally competent care. So in our work early on, Randy and I have been in this business, and Ray Terrell, well over 50 years as educators. And my work in the South early on in desegregation and had been focused on anti-racism, and Ray and Randy in different parts of the country as well. When we all came together in Los Angeles area, at Cal State Los Angeles, we found this monograph of Terry Cross called Culturally Competent Care. And we asked his permission to use the word because we found something we could be for instead of something to be against. Although we strongly believe in anti-racism as action. And so cultural proficiency, and Terry Cross said, absolutely, you have permission to use it, just do no harm. Take the work and do good work with it. And so we feel the same way about it. It's work to be shared. It is work that has a framework to it. There are 4 tools. And we now, because of our relationship with Corin, we have written almost, we along with many co-authors, we work in collaboration with other authors. We've written almost 20 books. All of them have those same 4 tools, but they are applied in a different way. So when we talk about culture, in addition to organizational culture, we mean a person's faith. We mean their socioeconomics. We mean their gender. We mean their sexual orientation or gender identity. We mean their race, their ethnicity, their abilities, or I think I said gender and race and language. So we describe culture in a very broad term. And then it's the intersectionality of all those that come together, because we're not any of us just one identity. We may claim an identity, but we're really an intersection of all those. I identify myself as a Southern white woman, and everything that goes into that, it really talks about who I am. The aspect of cultural proficiency that we put forward, it's one approach. There are many approaches to diversity, equity, inclusion, but what we put forward is called the inside out approach. It's not about learning about other people and their language and their foods and their festivals, though those things are important to know, but it's really about knowing about self first. So that's the inside out approach. So who am I? And then who are we as an organization? So my favorite questions to ask people in organizations or in school districts is to ask the question, who are we? So people say, well, here's our vision statement, or here's our mission statement. So then I say, okay, ask the question individually, who am I? And so people start writing, well, I'm an educator, I'm an administrator, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a parent, I'm a spouse, I'm a community organizer, and they keep writing until they just run out of things to say, who am I? And then we ask the question, are you who you say you are? So then we ask for evidence. So in schools, in districts, are you who you say you are is usually found in your vision statement. But then you ask the question, are we who we say we are? What evidence would you have of that? So here's an example. In almost every vision or mission statement, you'll find we believe that all students can learn. So then we ask the question, well, are you who you say you are? And then we ask for evidence. And do you really believe that all kids can learn? The evidence is very clear now today. There's no argument of that. But we ask people what evidence, what would be some indicators of your belief? And then we look at data and it's like, well, we believe that all kids can learn, well, except kids with discipline problems. They just can't focus. They're not interested. Their parents don't care. They don't come well prepared. Yeah, we believe all kids can learn except kids with special needs. We just can't meet all their needs. They don't, they have to have special circumstances, and we can't meet all those needs. And oh yeah, not we just can't expect that all kids can. So it comes down to more exceptions to that rule than the true belief. So we ask folks then to really examine evidence of, are you who you say you are? So cultural proficiency is really about an individual's values, beliefs, assumptions. Can you identify what those are? Can you talk about your own values? And then for the organization, the outside part of it is, who are we as an organization? What are our policies, our practices, our structures, our procedures? Because if people follow those, then those are the actual behaviors that determine if we're culturally proficient or not. Um, if we say, no, I'm not racist, I certainly don't behave in a racist way. But if we look at data, and people say, well, I'm certainly not biased, but those parents don't care about their kids. And I'm not at all biased, but some parents just don't care. Some kids can't do the work. But listen to your own language, and you can hear the bias, you can hear the prejudice. Race and racism are strong words to use, but when we start looking at our own behaviors, and our own actions, we can see inside organizations how schools are structured for some students to be very successful. The system serves some students very well, but that same system does not serve other students very well. Let's take right now with the coronavirus. A lot of virtual learning is going on, but not in areas where there are no internet connections, not in schools where students don't have devices that they can use. There are situations where parents are not available to teach in a homeschool situation. So all students are not getting the resources in an equitable way right now. So we can't just say school's out and expect that all kids are going to have an equitable education between now and the time school starts again in the fall. I know everybody's working as hard as they can to make this time work for all students. And I know a lot of districts are really looking at what is an equitable way to make sure that all kids get food, that all kids get the materials and the resources. And we have to keep pushing forward to make sure that we're serving our community in a culturally proficient way. So when you get to the book study, Kimberly, and people look at this book and they say, oh my gosh, that'll take us forever. I want to mention that where I have it marked right here, this section of the book is all about resources. This section of the book, the front section of the book, is the content, explaining the framework so that you'll know the 4 tools and you'll know how to use those 4 tools. Then you will work as a facilitator for professional learning. You can use any of these activities. They're designed in lesson plan format. It tells you exactly how to set up for the strategies, how to use them. So it is, and there's also a guide for a book study in those resources. The book is also set up for you to do your own journaling. It's set up for 2 things, reflection and dialogue. So you have to think about your own thinking. This kind of work can be, it's complex and it can be lonely work. And right now, as people are feeling more and more isolated, this kind of book is excellent for book study. The questions are already embedded in the content part. So you get content, and then you get reflective questions, and then you get questions to use as dialogues with the group or with your team or with your PLC. or any groups that you're working with. So it's designed to be to use your reflective practice, your reflective skills, as well as your dialogue skills. And it gives you the facilitation guides that you need. Um, we have established a way for folks to work together through the Center for Culturally Proficient Educational Practice. Our website is ccpep.org. And through that center, we train cohorts of folks, teams of folks to work together about what is cultural proficiency and how can we use the framework in our own classrooms in our own school. So as people think about when school starts back, and it will, how are we going to work together to make sure that we, in an equitable fashion, we're coming back together? And between now and when school would traditionally be out, what is it that we're doing to refresh and renew ourselves as faculty members, staff members, our community, to stay connected in a way that we've been disconnected, and how can we stay together as a community? So those are some things that I wanted to mention today. And Kimberly, I'm going to send it back to you in case you have any comments or questions. I represent a list of probably 20 or 25 co-authors that my husband Randy and I have been working with for over 30 years around this work, and many master's degree students and doctoral students who have done their research using cultural proficiency, and some amazing work that's come from our master students and our doctoral students on what is equity. And before you can write an equity plan, you have to figure out what the inequities are in schools, and digging deeply, not only in the data, but what do the data reveal about us individually and as an organization. So back to you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. I am so excited. So we've heard from one of our experts, and I just want to tap in to share 3 goals of, I'm calling it Thursdays. Let's talk about culture with Kimberly L. You heard Delores say it's about reflection during this time, and even bringing up the COVID right now. I've seen articles where people are making fun of or discriminating now against Asian students. Like, these are things, when we go back to our prospective jobs and organizations, that we need to be able to respond to. So if you want to know how to respond and build your capacity and understand how to lead, I call it leading from the inside out, because I believe if there's something that you have a desire to bring change in an organization or within yourself, you have to put in that extra effort. This isn't something that's within your daily job or your daily work. It takes a little bit of extra effort for you to study and learn and network and form alliances. And believe it or not, that's why I spoke of Nicole Anderson Associates, because this is an amazing individual who helps out many leaders, um, Northern and Southern California, and that she's right in our backyard as well. The Lindseys right in San Diego. So I want to bring on more leaders on Thursdays and just start introducing my network of friends and my colleagues to professional development support that is right in our backyard. There's nothing wrong with going to Florida or Hawaii to a big conference. I'm hearing that my mic is messing up. I'm going to fix that for next time. But I hope you can hear me.
It's better. It's better.
Is that better? So the goal is to start a hub. That's number one. I'm going to bring on some different leaders on Thursdays. So if you need support with your organization, you don't have to be an educator. You saw I didn't speak to any specific organization. It's this inside out work that you can apply to your daily life and whatever you do as a career. I'm going to bring on some leaders, though, and supports that you can tap into that are in your area, Northern and Southern California. And if they're not available, they can connect you to other leaders leading this work. The other part is the virtual book club. So we're not going to study the book today, but next Thursday, which is April the 9th, will be on chapter 1. So we'll do that for 9 Thursdays. And Delores has offered her support when she's available. She's going to come back on with us. I don't have that date, but we
Any,
may, yeah, we're going to have some surprise guests. So then you get to speak to the leader of the work. So that is amazing. And I thank her for that servitude, that willingness since I've met them. The last part I wanted to say was about the hub. That's a work in progress, but I will continue to post and share different resources, different consultants. I just want to share the work because I went on an amazing retreat with some leaders. Nicole Anderson had led this work, and I came back revived. I came back motivated, and it just helped me understand who I am. Okay. And it just kind of piggybacked off of the work of wanting to know about others. And that is how we make change in this world. We need to understand the students we serve, not just by a title or a race, but by name and need, by understanding who they really are. So I'm going to stop there. If you have any questions, if you want to ask Dolores, we're going to take 5 minutes before we close. I know it said it's an hour, but we really only wanted it for 30 minutes tonight. But if you have a question, I have my Facebook Live up on my phone here that you would like to ask her. You could do so at this time. And if you don't have questions and you're excited about diving in with us for some deeper learning, even if you've attended the cultural proficiency learning before and you just want to deeper your learning, come on in with us on Thursdays. Let's have a discussion. Let's keep our um, life, we're lifelong learners. Let's just stay sharp. Let's sharpen our tools. So if you have any questions, I'm on Facebook Live now, and Dolores will answer them. So this is your time. If you don't have any questions, then we'll be closing out. If there's anything else you want to share, Dolores, go ahead. And I'm looking on Facebook Live to see if there's any questions.
well, I'm sure that my husband Randy would make himself available on one of these upcoming Thursdays. He has interesting stories to tell about getting the book published, and we're so appreciative, Kimberly, of the work you and your colleagues are doing. We appreciate Corwin Press very much, that they're continuing to publish not only our books, but other authors on equity, social justice, inclusion. And we appreciate they're taking the lead in the industry on publishing books on equity.
All right, just got a question. May they have the name of the book again? Share the title of the book.
Yes, you can go to Corwin's website and just type in cultural proficiency and the books will come up. This one is called Cultural Proficiency, a Manual for School Leaders, 4th edition. And again, to give recognition, Randall Lindsey, Kikanza Nuri Robbins, Raymond Terrell, and then they let me join them on the 4th edition. We're waiting on now. I'm so excited. I have 2 co-authors that joined me on a book that we call Leading While Female. We launched a study about a year and a half ago for women leaders, women
Wow.
leadership. And the books are at the warehouse, but there's nobody there to inventory them and count them and get them. And so those of you that pre-ordered books, they'll be in your mailbox soon.
Well, I have a question I want to share. I know it's from a different author that co-authored with you. It's called Open Doors.
Opening Doors, yes.
Opening Doors.
That's
That was an amazing read for some of the leaders. If you could share, it gave me an insight on basically it felt like I was in their school, how they rolled out the process.
Well, that's because Dr. Trudy Arriaga, excuse me, is also a co-author of mine on the new book coming out with Dr. Stacy Stanley and I. Trudy Arriaga is the former superintendent in Ventura School District, K-12 district. She was there for 12 years. And she kept unbelievable notes on what it took to be an equitable leader in a school district. And so that notebook, Randy came across that notebook in a conference one day, and he said, "You realize you have a book here." She thought maybe she had an article. He said, "No, I'm sorry, this is not an article. This is a book." And so they worked together then on what it means that cultural proficiency is a way to open doors for all students in schools. And that again, this is a book about how policies and practices are established for some students to be successful and others not. And so through her journey, in that book, we're able to show how you may not know all the details about cultural proficiency, but you can be a culturally proficient leader. So it's called Opening Doors. Again, it's on Corwin's website. It's an implementation book. It's a how-to. The way we describe cultural proficiency is it's your why. It's why you do what you do. The how and the what are the tools. The four tools. You have to overcome barriers. You have to have guiding principles in order to overcome those barriers. There's a continuum that helps you assess where you are, 6 points on a continuum. And then there are 5 essential elements. And those 5 essential elements are the actions. And with those 4 tools in place, you not only will open doors for students, and Trudy describes it, there are some students that need to be escorted through the doors. So that metaphor of opening doors is a wonderful way to describe how to use those 4 tools.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share one last thing. I don't see any questions coming up, but for those leaders, and I'll have Delores chime in on this and then we'll close. Have you ever been in a situation where, and I'll actually use a show. I watch a show called This Is Us. If anybody has watched that, this is where, oh, it's very good. So if you saw the part where the sister of the African American male that's of the family, he was adopted. They go into a store. The sister of his wife is dating the baby brother, and they go into a store. And the clerk doesn't believe that the Caucasian male and African American female are together, and it really hurt her feelings. And she didn't share it with him until later. And I'm sharing that to say because sometimes we can be in the store, we can be on our jobs, or you can be with a parent that may not want to see you because of the color of your skin, or a comment that's made to a student, or a comment that's made to an employee, or something in your workroom. Someone's making a derogatory joke, you know what I mean? Or a microaggression comes across. So I see this now in different sitcoms. And I believe it's just shining a light on the need for that interrupt, the need for knowledge and awareness that these things are happening and there are ways to respond. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted Delores to speak to that because one more thing, with that being said, Kamala Harris was speaking to the inequities right now with the COVID going on, that some kids don't have internet, some kids don't have tablets. Those are things that we're going to be responding to when all of this settles. But wouldn't it be nice to be prepared with some cultural proficiency, doing some inside out work with ourselves, so we'll have a better understanding when we do go back to our prospective jobs. Okay, Delores.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's one of my favorite shows, absolutely. And what they demonstrate on there through the relationships are what we call, the implicit bias or unconscious bias or microaggressions. And what we have to say about that is that even though the intention is not to hurt anybody, the outcome is the same. So for the person receiving that comment, and somebody says, oh, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, or I didn't mean to offend you, or I didn't mean that about you, you're not like them. Or a comment is a person of color says, every time I go in a store, the store clerks are watching me. And then a white person says, are you sure? Does that really happen? You're questioning their own experience. And so the feelings on the other side is, I'm telling you my experience. Don't you believe me? And so the outcome on the other side, the person receiving those microaggressions, is the same thing as if they were huge aggressions, and then we say, well, I'm not a racist, but your behaviors are in line with someone who would be called a racist. And so we have racism, and then we have racist behaviors.
Yeah.
So, and people get upset. Well, let's don't talk about that. That gets people, that gets white people upset, Well, white people are the dominant culture. We're still in charge of everything. And so we're still making policy. We're still making the rules. If we're not willing to examine our own behaviors and we just want to make people feel good, we're not doing anti-racist work. We're not doing culturally proficient work. We have to be willing to really dig deeply and say, an apology is an apology. It's not, an apology is, I'm sorry, period. It's not, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. It's not, I'm sorry if I offended you. It's, I'm sorry, and what else do I have to learn about myself?
Yeah.
So that's the inside out approach. And asking myself questions, what is it that what else do I need to know? I mentioned earlier, Kimberly, I've been doing this work over 50 years, and there are some days that I am still culturally blind about some groups of people or my own actions. So people would say, yeah, but Delores, you're an expert. I'm an expert enough to know I'm not culturally proficient every day.
Yes.
Not something that I get up and I say, well, am I going to be culturally proficient today about issues of race? I don't have to deal with racism every day. You get up and you're going to deal with racism every day.
Yeah.
Now, as a female, I know that there are going to be issues of sexism probably every day. And so, but I have to be intentional about dealing with issues of that our gay and lesbian friends deal with every day. I don't deal with, but I have to be intentional about looking for those issues and being proactive and being willing to step up and being willing to all those isms, to take on those isms.
Yeah.
And that's, and right now, we have to be more active than ever before, or students are going to be left out.
Yeah.
It was at a gathering, small gathering, we were keeping our distance, and a teacher said from a very affluent district, she said, I talked to all my students today and they were so excited to hear from me and they're all getting their work done. And I said, you really had access to all your students, every one of them, each and every one. And she said, well, I have 25 students, but 2 of them don't have internet, so they don't count. They don't count.
That's
And,
what Kamala Harris is talking about.
and I said, in what ways will you count them and include them in future conversations? And she said, well, that's something the district will have to work on. So and she means no harm. She's a wonderful person, but it just wasn't in her way of thinking yet, to think about the students that don't count.
Yes.
So
You have one question, Delores. How do you change a biased culture of an organization?
one person at a time. You can't change people, but you can change behaviors. You can change the rules, you can change the policies, and those policies and procedures are what cause people to behave the way they behave. But people have to be willing to examine the data. Why is it we behave this way? Why is it that employees are leaving? What do you, are we asking exit questions? And we'll get some information. Well, I was not treated well here. I was not supported here. Nobody invited me to go to lunch functions. I was isolated. So when we start asking questions, we will get some of the responses about the bias in the organization. But you can't, I've found out, you can't make people do what they don't want to do. But when they can see evidence of either their own behavior or evidence that things are not right and they were not aware of it,
Yeah.
it can make a difference. And it's hard to stay in the work, but it takes, sometimes you're just starting with the people that want to do the work. Don't try to take on the hardcore folks first. And you may not get everybody, but start with a small cadre of folks who want to do the work and begin to leverage a few points in the organization, change a few rules, get to the policy level, make some changes in how folks are supposed to behave and perform, and you'll begin to see some differences.
Thank you so much for being our first. You're the first. So
Love
I
this.
appreciate it. This is my first live, so sorry it was a little choppy. I thank everyone for their comments, for tuning in. I want to thank you, Dr. Delores Lindsey, for your mentorship, your leadership, and just support in this work. It has really been just a life changer for me. And I just want to continue to learn. So, those of you who are excited about the work, meet us again on Thursday, April the 9th, for Let's Talk About Culture. And we're going to continue to be lifelong learners. Have a good evening. We are signing off. And you can comment at the bottom of this live if you want questions later or if you want to be included. I also have set up an Instagram and I'll share it on my Facebook. It's Let's Talk Culture KL on Instagram. And I'll be posting different information on there to share to help out your prospective organizations. Have a good evening and everyone be safe, be safe, be safe.